Hazy Radio Network. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual hosts and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Hazy Radio Network, its affiliates, or sponsors. All shows are independently owned and broadcast for entertainment purposes only.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Broader View with Hazy, Wanda, and my favorite producer, Mr. Scott Hare. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just your favorite producer because you can't do it yourself right now. So
just right now. Next week might be a whole different story.
next week, hate my guts.
Yeah. Don't think we can hate your guts.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that will happen.
That's a possibility.
Absolutely just despise me. You know, be talking behind my back. And right now it's, oh, how you doing? You're just my favorite. That's because she needs something from me.
Have you been reading my emails?
Oh, Lord.
I would never look at people's emails.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just checking. Good evening, Scott. Good evening, Wanda. How are you guys?
Except for yesterday.
Except for yesterday, between the hours of 4 and 6. You're good?
I'm good.
I'm melting.
I worked my butt off today. I'm good.
You're good?
I'm melting. I had to work all weekend. I didn't get a break. So everybody had a break. I didn't have a break.
I didn't have a break.
I know you didn't have a break, but everybody's like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm so refreshed for Memorial Day. I'm looking at them going, shut up before I crown you.
I know. People. I know.
It was a working weekend.
I
at the house.
I literally told one of my friends today who I had to listen to because he knew I had to work. He was just kind of trying to like twist the knife a little bit. I literally told him, I swear to God, you better shut up before I shove a snow cone up your
nose.
Before you cauterize, huh?
Little procedure.
But if it's warm out, they may not object.
Well, there's this little procedure called a rectal cranial inversion. Yeah, and I told him.
I don't even know if I want to know about it.
Yeah, and I told him I do have medical training and I do know how to do that. So, so he's
yeah. So what's going on? What's happening?
Nothing. I told you I worked all week.
Nothing.
So
how about you, Wanda? You worked all weekend?
Oh, well, around the house. I replumbed 2 toilets and, mowed the yard and did the laundry and cleaned the house and went swimming quite a bit.
So you domesticated all weekend?
Oh, God, I domesticated. And then this evening I came home and made my weed killer concoction that is safe for the environment.
With the
vinegar and the Epsom salts and the dish liquid.
You'll have to tell me how that works.
I heard it works really good. A couple of the people I work with use it.
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook yesterday, and I heard other people use it, but I have not used it. I was home for a couple days this weekend before I took off again, and I looked at my backyard, and I think Tarzan lives there. It's that bad. So if you hear screaming from my backyard, it's Tarzan lost.
Yeah, I don't domesticate very well either. Steve Irwin actually came to do a show on me. That's how much I don't domesticate. So.
Oh wow!
Crikey! Look at this little beauty. Oh, he's a troublemaker.
Well, you are. So he was right. She was right.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see that video on Facebook where this guy who is a tour guide down in I don't know where it is, that he swims with the alligators, kind of like a Steve Irwin guy. But I'm looking at this thing, and this guy is feeding the alligators, and this alligator is hugging him.
Well,
we done domesticated that.
Yeah,
critter.
gators are. Well, now an alligator is a little different from what he was swimming with. I mean, he was swimming. He was in there with saltwater crocodiles.
Oh, he was in there with something. I wouldn't go in with either one.
Which will eat you. They will eat you so fast they literally won't have time to dip you in the secret sauce.
Yeah. Why would you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean.
Why would you want to get in the water with that?
That's what he did. I mean, that's he since birth. I mean, that's what he did. And I mean, I was talking to somebody about. It's funny enough. I was talking about somebody about Steve Irwin. The world was a better place with Steve Irwin in it.
Didn't you love Steve Irwin?
I mean,
I like that guy.
He would crack you up, but he did. I mean, just as far as kids, I mean, kids not looking at these animals as scary monsters anymore. And, the world is not a better place without Steve Irwin in it. Yeah. It's definitely.
And what's cool is that his son and his daughter are both carrying on his father's tradition.
Yeah, well, I think his daughter now has a part in running the park.
Yeah, Mindy is.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, that was a sad day when you know.
I remember it was a Sunday morning. I'll never.
Oh man, I died.
Yeah,
it was a Sunday morning.
And funny enough, he always said he thought a crocodile would take him, and it was a stingray.
It was a stingray. And it was just a fluke, total fluke accident. And in fact, they were talking about it. A week or two ago on TV, on some channel, I don't remember what it was, and they said if he would have thought about it, and he would normally, in normal conditions, would have known the right thing to do. And really what killed him was pulling the sting.
Yeah, it was pulling the barb.
Pulling the barb out.
Yep.
If he would have left the barb there, he may have survived.
Yeah, if he would have thought for a second, and I mean, he just, I mean, even the cameraman said he didn't think, he just immediately went for it and pulled it out.
Right, just out of a reaction.
Well, I think he was also thinking it probably didn't hit his heart.
Right.
But if he would have left the barb in, it wasn't a guarantee he would have survived.
Right.
But he would have had a much better. They would have probably he would have had a fighting chance to get back to shore and to get some kind of treatment. Right. But
right.
Yeah, hey, it's just the way. I mean, but this barb was like, I think the barb was 6 inches long.
Yep.
So it was just really weird how it happened. He
and they didn't even know it was there.
No, well, I think they said he knew.
Well, because he swam over it, and it was buried under, the sand, and he swam over it because the photographer was with him. And he swam over it to go look at another one.
Right.
And that stingray came up out of the sand and flipped around and got him.
Yeah, it was freak. It was
total freak.
Yeah, it was a total freak accident. I mean, it was it was a mistake he made.
Yeah.
And
fatal mistake.
That happens. And I mean, they even said if he was alive today, he would even say that was totally my fault.
Oh, sure.
I should have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I should have been more observant. I saw one. I should have thought there was another one there.
Yep.
I probably shouldn't have tried to approach the other one from behind.
Yeah.
He should have approached it from the front. It is. It was sad, and I think the anniversary of his death is coming up here.
I think that's why it was on TV. I think it's coming up this summer.
I think it's next month. I think it's
June. Is it June or July? I think it is too.
I think it was June.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, but
it was sad. It was sad. But the man made in his short life, he made such a huge impact. Look at the environmental causes that he fought for.
Oh, just on conservation.
Just the
alone.
conservation and his ability to communicate effectively. Through his humor and through his language and through his accent and through
he was also passionate about it.
Yes.
And I mean, if you see somebody, I mean, you could have somebody who's just going through the motions, then you have somebody who's just he was absolutely passionate about conservation and saving these creatures.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is a creature who, this is a creature that could be 3 times your length and 3 to 4 times your size and could take you down very quickly. Right. And he was very passionate about that. He made you look at this animal that you would look at as a monster into something that's very caring.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, that is huge to do to actually change a culture.
Yep.
And I mean, it is. I mean, I was thinking about that. I'm like, I wish, my nephews who just turned 2 today, I wish Steve Irwin was still alive because, I mean, those are the types of shows that, that I want my nephews watching.
Absolutely. I watched it every time.
Yeah,
I watched it all the time.
And he was just good for a laugh. I mean, he would do the craziest things.
goofy things. Goofy things.
You know,
goofy things.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to put this top jaw rope on. And he jumps on the croc before the top jaw rope's on.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like, Steve, you forgot something there, the jaw. You know, or...
Where's the duct tape? You forgot the duct tape.
Yeah, remember the big old roll of duct tape?
No, actually, they never used duct tape.
No, they used the rope.
Yeah, they always used the rope.
Yeah.
The funniest thing I always loved, though, is when he was working with that one crocodile there who wanted to kill him. You know, this one...
the one, did you ever see the one with him in the lawnmower?
Yeah, this...
The crocodile was trying to mow the lawn, and the crocodile was attacking the lawnmower?
Yeah, there's one crocodile, there's this... No, but... You know, but then the funny thing is, of course, there's the one crocodile, I think it was Aggro, who just wanted to kill him, and you thought, okay, well, there's this crocodile, at least the other crocodiles don't want to kill him, and he goes, now I'm going to Akko's cage. Akko really wants to bite at me. And I'm like, well, if he really wants to bite at you, what the hell's Aggro?
I know. I just love that man. He made me laugh, but, you know, he also woke you up. He's really the one who saved the network Animal Planet. Because Animal Planet was like nothing.
Yep. Yeah.
Before Steve Irwin got on there. And he got on there, and then all the shows, you know, launched from that. Because if you look at many of the shows now, a lot of them take off after Steve Irwin show.
Well, yeah, there are shows on now that do. They kind of realize that Steve Irwin had this concept, and it's like, oh, it works.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the animal shows now, they are, you can see that definitely Steve Irwin had, like I said, he changed the culture.
Yeah.
You know, it's no longer Wild Kingdom. You know, here is the beast trying to get the beast, and yeah, you know, you know, it's you know, with him it was hands on. It was right up in your face. It was like, you know, they're not, you know, these things aren't evil. You know, and that's, you know, that's, you know, I hope one day I could have a minor bit of changing something like he did in just such a global scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And still nobody knows to this day still where he's buried.
No.
They probably throwed him where that crocodile was.
Well, no.
He was You've heard of cremation. He's crocodiliation.
No, there. You know, I did hear a rumor that, I mean, there is a place. I know there is a place within their zoo where they do bury the crocodiles.
Yes. And supposedly that's where he's buried.
Yeah, and there is a rumor that he's buried there. He's buried there with him. I don't know if it's marked or anything, majorly marked or anything, but I've heard that rumor. I've heard he's buried out on the huge wildlife preservation, you know, that he bought. He's buried somewhere out there. I've heard that he was cremated and he was spread, you know, his ashes were spread out, you know, somewhere in Australia Zoo.
Yeah.
I don't know. They may have fed him to one of the crocodiles. I really don't know.
Who knows?
But
I just think, you know, I just think the things that he did and he was like in his 30s, wasn't he in his like mid to late 30s, early 40s?
Yeah, I think he was in his 40s. I think he was in his early 40s.
Early 40s, late 30s, early 40s. So he was very young. Yeah, just, you know, just amazing man.
Yeah,
but
sad.
That's a great segue into the show that we have tonight. We have Karen Moriarty coming on, and she is the author of the book Defending a King, The Life and Legacy of Michael Jackson. And you talk about another icon who has changed the world.
But Michael Jackson, I mean, you do have to say that Michael Jackson is controversial.
Well, absolutely he is.
Yeah, you know, I mean, with all the stuff that happened in the United States, I mean, how different his popularity is now to when he was alive and what it was in the United States and what it was around the world. It was really, really odd. You know, it's really weird.
Well, I think because over the last year, I have done more looking into, and Karen will go into this a little bit too because she's done years of study on this now. It took her 2 years to write the book. That's how that's how in depth it is. Many things that we heard over here in the States were not true.
Right.
They were fabricated or exaggerated or twisted
I can believe that.
or whatever.
Believe that. Yeah, well, the way our media is.
Yeah, typical tabloid media hype. Many of the things that he did that were, when I use the word normal, I mean, because it's really the guy wasn't as abnormal as you think he was.
He couldn't have a normal life. I mean, this guy
Could
has been
not.
in...
There is no way that this man could have had a normal life.
He was in the spotlight since he was 6?
8 years old.
8
he started singing when he was 5. And he started performing when he was 8.
Yeah, so I mean, since he was...
He had, and within a year of their first single as a Jackson 5, or their first album, they had bodyguards.
Well, yeah.
They could not go in public.
Yeah, since he was 8 years old, I mean, this is all he's known. He didn't have a childhood. He didn't... You know, I mean, you can see why... You could see why the interpretation was the way he was.
Right.
You know, and I'm not talking about the child abuse allegations. I'm talking about just he really seemed like an introvert. You know, he was kind of held back a little bit. You could see why he was. You could kind of understand the interpretation of the way he was because of his upbringing. You know, I mean, he was always in the spotlight.
Rather than the interpretation, and Scott, I believe everything that you were saying before I started into this. I bought into all the hype, and I bought into all the media hype that was going on. I thought this guy was just off, pardon the pun, but off the wall. I did not realize until I started looking into this and I read the book. And I've read a couple of books now. The reasons behind the things that he did. When you talk about the plastic surgery, when you talk about the way he dressed, when you talk about, the music he performed. I mean, everything that he did publicly was really not that abnormal. If you really look at it. They talk about how he dressed and how he looked. Look at the rock musicians that are out there.
I know, no, I'm not, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they, rather than saying, ooh, isn't that cool that he's a rock star, which he was, they put him down for it. Yet, do you hear them saying the same thing about the band Kiss?
No.
Do you hear them hearing the same thing, the Stones? So you look at the division between this. I think what the turning point for him was he actually had a few turning points in his life. The big turning point was in '93 with the first molestation allegations.
Right.
With Chandler. And I think, and we'll talk about this with Karen, but I think if, rather than this payoff that was recommended to him, if he would have gone to trial with that one, I think the perception that was drawn after that would have been completely different.
Well, that was the thing, is that because he settled, it shows, of course, court of public opinion is the biggest thing, especially in this country. It showed the interpretation of guilt, that he was trying to make it go away.
Right.
Which I think which you are right. That, especially in this country, with the way that this country is, and this country and this society, and I don't want to act like, for people around the world, but they think this, I don't want to offend people, but this society is very critical. They are extremely critical.
And not only critical, but hypocritical.
Yeah,
hypocritical.
Very, very, we're a very hypocritical society where if we get the chance to jump on somebody, we're going to do it.
Right.
And this was just sitting out there, and there are always two things that I've always thought about with our society. They love to see a person come back. They love to see a person make a comeback. They love to see the underdog, triumph. But there's also something else that we like and this is the hypocritical side. We love to take somebody down. And this country is better at taking somebody down than bringing somebody up. And it was the perfect moment. It really was the perfect storm, unfortunately, for Michael Jackson, where this country just all of a sudden completely turned on him and just literally took him down.
And what's amazing to me is, even with all of this, his popularity never dropped.
It never, ever did.
It never dropped.
So here's the thing with the States, though. and this is where I want to play devil's advocate. There were a lot of people, I mean, and you would probably even admit this, there were a lot of people out there, even if they liked Michael Jackson, they weren't going to go against public opinion.
Right.
Right. Which is, I mean, I will definitely say that for the for his European audience, I'll say his global audience outside of the United States. They stayed with him blindly. Right. They stayed with him, they said, listen, we want to see more evidence. This is your obvious. Okay, you're saying this, but show us more. Show us proof that he actually did this. Until you do that, we're going to keep supporting him because we like his music. And I'll say this right away about Michael Jackson. I think he absolutely, hands down, I think he's the greatest showman of our time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
But with this country, he still has a lot of fans in this country. But it was after he died that it seemed like you started to see people become more vocal in the positive way about Michael Jackson than when he was alive. You wouldn't see as many people do that when he was, when he was still living because like this country, they're afraid to go against the mob.
In some aspects, you are correct on that. I would agree with that. But I think what you see now is more people coming out verbally and publicly defending him, where they didn't before. It really is because his life was put on display.
Right.
After he passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the people were not aware of what this man endured in his entire life until after he passed away because he kept that private.
Right.
And it really is the phenomenon to me of Michael Jackson. We got to go take a break pretty soon, but the phenomenon with Michael for me is that you see this image up on stage, this downright fire that he is up on stage.
Well, there's two Michael Jacksons.
The concert, right, the concerts that he puts on, and then you see his offstage persona where he's this quiet, soft-spoken, coming off very shy person. The two images, the two personalities don't match. Right. And that's what confuses people, is that they expect the man up on stage to be the man off stage.
Well, a lot of people say, who's the real Michael Jackson?
Who is the real Michael Jackson?
Is it the man
but
you see on stage?
I'm going to give you a good comparison, then we'll go to break and we'll bring Karen on. I'm going to give you a great comparison, and I thought about this last night while I was writing some notes. Think about the actors that are on screen, are icons, who were dynamic on screen, but extremely shy off screen. The one that comes to mind first off is Jimmy Stewart.
I was going to say, it's definitely not Tom Cruise.
Not Tom
Jimmy
Cruise.
Stewart.
I have actually met Tom Cruise. Trust me, he is not shy.
He is not shy.
He's a nutcase.
He is a nutcase. Yeah, I'm not a Tom Cruise fan. But so that oxymoron of having those two personalities, one is a job, one is your life.
Right.
In Michael's case, they meshed. His work was his life.
It was transparent. Yeah, it was.
So you have to look at both sides of it. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and go on break, and when we come back, we'll have Michael Jackson on. I wish we had Michael on. You never know. It's a paranormal network. You never know, it might come through. So don't go away. You're listening to the Broader View on the Hazy Radio Network. We'll be right back with Karen Moriarty. And welcome back to the Broader View, everybody, with our very, very, very special guest, Dr. Karen Moriarty, who is the author of Defending a King, His Life and Legacy. Karen is a teacher, a counselor, an administrator, a consultant in public schools, and as a licensed clinical psychologist in private practice. She has earned advanced degrees, including her doctorate from Northern Illinois University. She wrote the book Defending a King, His Life and Legacy, and it took Karen 2 years to put this book together. And I think it really is one of the most comprehensive books that I have read on the life of Michael Jackson. Dr. Moriarty, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ziva. I'm so happy to be here again. Thank you.
I adore you. And you know, I always say that, but I just adore you. And you know that. I tell you that all the time. But I've read the book again. Now, this is the fourth time I have read your book.
Oh, my goodness.
And I read it every time you come on, and I read it leisure. But I can honestly say that every time I read the book, I find something different in it. Something that I didn't pick up the last time. So it's one of those books that you can pick up, and if you have a question about something that Michael might have done or an opinion that he may have had, you can find that in your book.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
that's maybe overreaching a bit, but I mean, I'm really glad to hear that.
No, it really does, because if I need to, like if I'm writing something, and you know that I'll write something for Simply Michael, and if I want to get a feel for what his thought pattern might be, you have enough information from enough people that you've talked to where I can kind of get a feel of what direction he would go with something.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean,
really pleased to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, your book is incredible, and I recommend it constantly. Ask Wanda. I'm always recommending your book all over.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you know, I wrote it because I wanted a book to be out there like it, and there wasn't. I figured if there wasn't, and I didn't see one coming, you know, I decided to do it myself. And as you say, you know, got a hold of people who really knew Michael and loved him, and got input from them. And so that's why it's, you know, it's a different book, and it's not tabloid-like by any means. It's a more sensitive portrayal, of course. And it's, I think it's really truthful, and I really labored over the details and the way I put things so that I wouldn't be dramatic, overly dramatic, or sensationalizing or exaggerating or anything like that. So it was something that was done in a very careful, very careful manner, double-checked, triple-checked kind of thing. And I did want to capture the feel of the man, and that was really my goal, yeah.
And I absolutely agree with that 100%. When I read through the book, and what I appreciate about the book is that you look at the good, the bad, the ugly, and the wonderful, and you wrap it up in such a way that you really find compassion for this man as a human being. You take away the wrapping of him as the entertainer, and the word expose isn't the way I want to put it, but it's, you put the man,
things in perspective.
Yeah, you know, you put things, it's about the man, and it's about his trials and tribulations that he went through. It's about his sense of humor. It's about his dealing with not only his family, but his counterparts in the music industry and in the business of celebrity. That I don't think people understand how complex all of this was with him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, incredibly complex. Yeah. I just marvel. Even today, you know, I find myself marveling at what he did and what he was able to do and how he was able to survive, and not only survive and cope, but do so much.
And do so much.
Especially after, you know, what was done to him, you know, the pain he suffered, you know, yeah. So and you know, when I look at Michael Jackson too, after having researched and spoken to so many people, written a book, whatever, when I look at him in anything, a video, whatever, I see the man, I see the vulnerability.
Yes.
I really don't see the persona. For me, that's kind of faded away. I mean, he created this wonderful persona. I mean, that's part of his genius, is to have created a persona that really wasn't so much like the real person, who was so gentle and shy, and humble and not seeking a spotlight in his private life, you know. So when you see him on stage and in public, he's a whole different person. That's his persona. But anyway, when I see him anywhere now, any kind of video or picture or anything, I see the vulnerability. I see the man. I see, you know, maybe the pain in his eyes or whatever it might be, just because I have gotten so immersed in that side of Michael. So, you know, and because of that, I think I even marvel more at what he was able to do.
Absolutely. I totally agree. When you talk about him being as shy as he was, there was a great comparison that I put out just before you came on. And they talk about, you know, the fire that he does on stage. And the total flip of a personality off stage.
Yes.
And how the general public, if they don't understand him, can see that confusion.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
but
yeah.
if you look at history, and I'm going to use the movie industry, how many of the iconic figures up on the screen were phenomenal on stage, but extremely and cripplingly shy off stage?
Yes.
Jimmy Stewart was a prime example. Burt Lancaster was another one. You know, so it doesn't matter what they are on stage. That's their job, is to put that out there. What they do in their private life is their private life. I think the situation with Michael is that his private life and his public life meshed so much that people didn't understand the difference. They expected it to be the Michael that was up on stage.
Exactly. And then plus, you know, he came up as a child and everybody knew him as a child, a child performer, and then his family, the large, controversial, colorful, interesting family that also always had the spotlight, you know, that made it such that he had very special challenges, just, you know, to survive and thrive and also to try to keep private. It was much more difficult than a person that wouldn't have had that kind of, you know, social environment or family environment.
Right.
So it was even more difficult for him. And I think one of the reasons he tried so very hard to be private, for his own sanity and his own survival.
Right. Well, you know, how many of us, you know, when we come home from our day job, just want things to be quiet, just want to have our own space and do our own thing without any interference. Right. He never had that.
No. But, you know, to have that, but not in privacy. But, you know, actually at Neverland, he was able to carry that off pretty well for a lot of years. Because, you know, he was there for a long time. I think it was 17 years.
Yeah.
And so across the 17 years, he was able to have some semblance of privacy because he was, you know, it was his sanctuary and his escape place. And he was there quite a lot when he wasn't performing. So, you know, he did have some, you know, some very strongly guarded privacy there. But of course, then it all just, in a sense, it worked against him because then it all blew up because people were saying, what goes on over there? You know, what goes on at Neverland? And it could be something sinister. And then, you know, people made something of it that it wasn't. So that really, the irony is the little bit of privacy that he got really came back at him.
Yes.
You know, in a very, very destructive way. People weren't going to allow him to be private.
No, and they didn't want him to be. They wanted every piece of him that they could get. Yes. And I just, to me, that is so sad. You know, he just wanted to be, and I'm going to use the word because there's no other word that I can use. He wanted to be normal. And he was normal. But he wasn't normal in the public eyes.
Right.
And they didn't understand him.
Right. Yeah, and he was normal because, you know, even I have a chapter, as you know, in the book called, you know, it has to do with bizarre behavior is normal in bizarre circumstances. So in other words, his adaptations were very understandable and very normal, although they didn't look that way to the outside person.
Right,
but
exactly.
Also nobody knew what he had to deal with at the total pinnacle of celebrity and fame, the most recognized man in the world, and the most sought after and the most violated in terms of his rights to privacy. So, you know, it was failing his children and doing some things like that now we look back on, you know, that really made a lot of sense.
Right.
Considering what's happened since.
Yeah.
You know, we can say, oh boy, now that makes sense, because we weren't walking in his shoes, and, you know, it really did. And again, a lot of things that looked bizarre really were not. They were adaptations.
They're adaptations, absolutely. And, you know, when you look at the entertainment field in general, and you look at people like Cher, you look at Kiss, you look at all of these iconic performers, did they all look and act and dress like we do? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They had to put on, when they are in public, they are putting on themselves. This is their show. when they go home, they're in T-shirts and sweats and jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Michael did the same thing. You know, his favorite outfit was either pajamas or, you know, a loose shirt and a pair of slacks and, you know, comfortable clothes.
Mm-hmm.
Why not dress up? Why not, you know?
Yeah.
But let the man be human.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't allow him to be human. They wanted him to be this ultra god of some kind, and he didn't want that.
No. But they also wanted him to be weird because there was such big money in it. Anytime they did a story, you know, how something weird, or they would fashion as weird about Michael Jackson, you know, they would, the magazines, the tabloids, the newspapers would fly off the shelves because people wanted to read that and see it.
Right.
And so, you know, that's why it became kind of self-reinforcing. It's sort of like, hey, if you have a quiet Monday, you know, say something silly about Michael Jackson, like, you know, he's an alien or something.
Right.
You know, and then you really pick up your circulation, and, you know, it's just a lot of fun at his expense, and he can't do anything about it. So, you know, that the media industry went crazy and made a, you know, had $1 billion industry over making Michael Jackson look weird. So once they'd set that paradigm, you know, years ago, then it stayed in place. You know, he didn't have a chance to come out of it.
Right.
Except maybe now, you know, now that he's gone and people have to, you know, are kind of forced to look at him in a different way and the truth's coming out, now they're realizing, many who care to know, that, you know, he wasn't those things and he wasn't weird, and so much of it, maybe, you know, 80%, 90%, even maybe more, is just not true. Right.
You know, and there was always a comment made, you know, I think back to, I remember my mother was a subscriber to the Inquirer, and I remember seeing those articles about the elephant bones and about the oxygen chamber, and we all bought into it. I didn't buy into the oxygen chamber. But, you know, I kind of bought into the elephant bones because I went, that's kind of cool. Because he's got Neverland and he's got part of a museum in there, and maybe that's going to be part of a museum. That's how I thought that one. And I went, you know, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. Why not? But I also remember the oxygen chamber, and I talked to a friend of mine this past week about it, and her comment, she asked me, she said, why didn't he go out and fight all of these allegations when they came up? And I said, because he would be having a press release every single day.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to pick and choose your battles. And this man did not stop working. So he would just go, all right, fine, there's another one, let it go away and just ignore it. And the sad thing is with Michael is that they never went away. It just kept building and building and building one onto the other.
Well, and you know, Zita, usually he wouldn't even read the stuff. He wouldn't read it. And he wouldn't be seeing it on TV or anything. You know, although he lived in a controlled environment. And he protected himself and then his children when they came along by making sure that stuff didn't get into the household. So, you know, I don't think he saw much of it at all. And the people who worked for him weren't about to make him unhappy unless you know, they had to bring something to him. I'm not sure they did.
Right, and there's a part in your book. Yeah, there's a part in the book where one of the bodyguards brought an article that, her name went right out of my head.
I believe Ramon Dane.
Yes, Ramon Dane brought it in. And Michael cringed and pretty much did a double take and saying, what is it? What's in it? And they had to let him know that it was okay to read it.
Yes, exactly. That was okay to read. Yeah, it was approved for him to read. So it wouldn't make him feel bad. You know? And so, yeah, so then he read it. So he had those things screened because he didn't need to. And it makes so much sense to me. You know, who would need to be seeing all that kind of stuff? You know, it's painful. He was human, and it was painful, and so I see it. So he really didn't. In fact, one of the big award shows, he said, I think there was one where he was with Janet, and they did a celebration of his genius and his accomplishments at the time. And he said, I didn't know that people thought I was so strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, he said that at the microphone. I didn't know people thought I was that strange. So something must have, you know, come to his awareness a few days or a week or a month or whatever before this award show that gave him an aha experience, which is, oh my goodness,
right.
I perceived that way.
Right.
So, so I think that whole self-protective mode he was in made an awful lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And you have to think too that this guy worked 90% of his life right. from the time he was 8 years old. That he was either recording or writing or performing or being tutored. He would have free time with his brothers and his sisters. But again, that's a controlled environment. You're not watching TV. You're not paying attention to what's going on outside the gates because your life was inside the gates.
Right.
And
that was his children. Yeah, he focused on them.
Right, exactly. And then when their fame started, everything was done for them. So not only was he controlled on the inside, he was controlled on the outside. All he would have to do is ask for something and it would just show up. He didn't know how it got there. It just got there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's not saying anything against him. It's because he couldn't go out and do it.
Right. Oh, yeah, right. So the people who were benefiting from him on his payroll were making sure he got whatever he wanted, whether it was a brand new car or whether it was whether it was clothing or whatever it was, or arrangements to go somewhere, it would all magically be put together. And he got conditioned to expect that because, his father was his manager for so many years.
Right.
And when he was a child, he just got an allowance for years, even when he was making big money. He was living on an allowance, and his father was managing the money and then just giving him what he deemed appropriate, and it was not really a whole lot of money. It was an allowance for many years. So he was so used from the time he was a child, and most of us then have to learn to do these things for ourselves, but he didn't. He went right from a father manager to other managers.
Right,
and
right.
Then, and then he had a cadre of people, accountants, managers, lawyers, publicists, whatever. And so all these people would be vying for his attentions and also to take care of him and to become indispensable to him. So they all did these things for him, and he never had to and never did and didn't know a lot of what was going on.
Right, exactly. And when you look at the life of celebrity, and I've only been involved with one celebrity on a kind of an intimate level, not that intimate, but personally, I knew her personally, and that was Lonnie Anderson. And this was at the time when she was working with WKRP. Okay, so I mean, this was the height of her career.
Yes.
And I watched all those wheels in motion of all the things that went on. And it's not one attorney you have. It's a law firm. It's not one accountant. It's an accounting firm. It's not one publicist. It's a firm. So you are literally, when you sign your first contract, you stop, and she had mentioned this to me. You stop becoming human. You are now a product.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everything depends on that product. From the way you dress to the way she wore her hair, her makeup. If you only knew how much cosmetic makeup she wore to look the way she looked. Off stage, without that makeup, she looks nothing like Lonnie Anderson. It's all an image, and that image has to stay pristine. And it takes all of these people to make that image.
Maintain it, yeah.
And then when she got involved with Bert, it tripled because now they were the Hollywood couple. And she went from being a TV star to a Hollywood housewife. And unbelievable, the things that she went through. What amazed me in your book, too, is when he talked about the stalkers. And he talked about the groupies and the things that happened to him where, he has scars till the day he died from being trampled and knocked over and knocked into things and things falling on him and his hair being pulled out of his head and things like that.
Yeah.
Same thing happened to Lonnie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see those pieces of it. We're going to get ready to go on break. But we have to go to the top of the hour break. But I wanted to tell you a story.
Okay.
And you will love this. I was at the airport on my way home on Friday. Mm-hmm. And this is going to give you an idea of the impact that Michael still has today. I was at the airport and I had to get a bottle of water to take on the plane with me. And I'm in the gift shop, and there was a young boy, probably 8, 9 years old, standing at the counter, and he had like a candy bar or something. And he looked at the lady behind the register, and he said to her, "Do you have that thing that Michael Jackson had?" Wow. And so I listened to the conversation, and I watched her reaction. And she says, yes, it's called vitiligo. Mm-hmm. And there was another cashier there, and so she said, can you take care of these, because I'm going to talk to him for a second. So she came around the corner. She came around the front of the counter, and he was asking her what it's like. And she was actually Native American. And so she rolled up her sleeves, and she showed him her patches. Mm-hmm. And she explained how they started and where they started. And then she says, I'm going to show you something else. And so she took a tissue out of her pocket, and she started wiping her face and took the makeup off her face. And she said, see, I even have it here. It was phenomenal. I can't tell you the goosebumps that I had watching her. And she looked at him, and of course now, because she's doing this, a kind of a small crowd gathered, and she looked at him, and she said, Michael gave us permission to take the makeup off.
Oh, that gave me chills.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's really powerful, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that not incredible?
Yeah, it really is. Wow.
You know, so even today, 5 years after he's passed away, he's still making a difference. And I looked at that little boy, and he was crying. And he said to her, thank you for being beautiful. And he turned around, he walked away.
Wow, what a mature kid. Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah, boy, it really is. It is, yeah.
Somebody raised that one right.
And his mother didn't say a word. Just let him ask the questions. And he asked the questions, and the woman behind the counter answered every one of them. Every single one of them.
Wow.
Okay, let's go ahead and do this.
That was quite a personal human exchange you had to.
Isn't it though? I mean, and it was, and what I kept thinking is because she got, again, I think of Michael, because whenever he was dealing with a child, he got down eye to eye with them. And she did the exact same thing. She knelt down and looked at him eye to eye and explained everything about what was happening to her. And then when she took the makeup off her cheeks, I lost it. I lost it. Okay, we need to go to the top of the hour break, and then when we come back, we'll talk to Karen more about her book, Defending a King, Life and Legacy of Michael Jackson. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The best in talk, the best in music, the best in radio is right here on the Hazy Radio Network.
From NPR News.
And welcome back to the Broader View, everybody, with your host, Hazy, my co-host, Wanda, my engineer, Scott here, and our special guest, Dr. Karen Moriarty, who wrote the book, Defending a King, His Life and Legacy. The book is offering an intimate and disclosing portrayal of Michael Jackson and the new information and unique insight regarding this king of a man. His goodness has been unknown and or ignored. This volume needs to be affixed to the legacy of his greatness. Bizarre behavior is normal in bizarre circumstances. Dr. Moriarty leads her readers through a maze of stunningly bizarre circumstances in which Michael lived and struggled through his private joys and sufferings as a real human being, a transcendent man. Dr. Moriarty, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Again, I'm really happy to be here.
Absolutely. When you were writing this book, I know that you and I have talked many times about this, and we both went through the persona of understanding who Michael was growing up. We knew who the man was. We knew who his music, but we weren't the diehard fans that you see today.
Mm-hmm, right.
And I can say that both of us began to understand the man after he passed away, and in a profound way. Mm-hmm. When you go back to look at the research that you did for the book, what were you surprised with the most?
What I was surprised with the most, I think, was his incredible level and depth of kindness and of humility in terms of, who he really was behind the, persona that we talked about during your last segment. I'm still impressed and still surprised by stories that come to my attention about Michael. True stories about how, his gentleness, his kindness, his sensitivity to other people, his inability to, purposely hurt anybody. He just was such a kind, gentle soul. And I had an interesting conversation not too long ago with Sherilyn Lee, who, as you recall, was Michael's nurse in April 2009 and was with him for some weeks before his very last weeks. And she was treating him with vitamins, and she did blood work, and she was overseeing his health in a holistic way and trying to help him regain, get to maximum health. That's what he wanted from her. And so he was doing very well with her. But then he went on, unfortunately, to focus on Dr. Murray's his actions to give him propofol to sleep, because he was very worried about his sleep problem. But anyway, Sherilyn got to know him and his children very, very well, and she was in his home quite a bit. And I asked her what impressed her most about him, and without even thinking, she said his kindness and his humility. And she said, I've never met a more kind man in my entire life. And she talked about how he would, even at that point in his life, he would go to a local hospital and find out who needed care or treatment or a procedure and couldn't afford it, and then he would provide for that. And he would do that late at night, that she was aware of. So he did not speak of it. He didn't brag of it, of course, and never would do that. But it's that kind of thing that he did, and then other just little things, day by day, where he was so considerate of other people and so kind, and always tried to see how he could help somebody and make somebody's life better. And he did not want to have his name on that, which I think is an astounding thing. Particularly since he's gotten such a bad rap in the media, and I would think it would feel good to see his name in the press saying, look what a good thing Michael Jackson did. But he wasn't interested in that. He was really above all that, which I think takes a very noble soul to be at that point.
Right.
And, so that's what really impressed me, because I also heard from a lot of people who shared their stories with me that have not become public, that just reinforced that, how privately good he was.
And I have to agree. I think that was the thing that surprised me the most. The other thing that surprised me the most is once I realized what this man had gone through, everything that this man, and I cannot fathom anybody going through as much as he did on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. Not only medically, but psychologically, physically. I mean, every aspect of this man, he had to endure something. And up until he passed away, he never lost that ability to love somebody, never lost that ability to care for somebody. The compassion never left him. I think he became more cautious than he was before. I don't think he was necessarily as free as he was before, but he never lost that compassion.
Oh, right, that's right. Yeah, and I think he was, certainly a very conscious choice. He opted for love, and it sounds corny. That's why a lot of people close to him, didn't really speak about it. But that's what he did. It really was. He opted for love, and that's why, like in that one song he wrote dedicated to his son, love is the answer to all that I am.
Mm-hmm.
Things about how you've helped me realize that love is the answer to all that I am. And I think that that was his MO, his way of defining himself and his way of behaving. And that was a very private person that people didn't know, unless they were really close to him. One story that really struck me was Tom Mesereau, with whom I've become good friends, and I feel very honored to be able to say that. But he helped me with my book, the parts about the trial, with behind-the-scenes information and that kind of thing, and he's endorsed my book. And since then, we have become friends, and we communicate regularly. Anyway, he told me that during the worst time in Michael's life, during the trial, Tom's sister died. And
yes.
Michael,
yes.
You may know that. You probably know this story.
Yep.
But he sent the biggest bouquet available. They said they could barely bring it in the door when she got home from the hospital. She had cancer. She got home from the hospital. She died shortly later. But when she was at home, she goes to the door, and they could barely get this bouquet of flowers through her door. It was that large. And he wrote a poem to her that was included with the flowers. So he spent the time to write a poem to her. So Tom, of course, was very impressed with that because it was the worst time of his life, and he was focused on the possibility of losing his children, of being incarcerated for potentially dozens of years. All that terrible anguish and fear and anxiety he was going through, and yet he did this, and not just had the flowers delivered to her, which I suppose anybody could do, but he paused to send a personally constructed poem to her from him. And that's who he was. That's who the behind-the-scenes person was.
See, the things that he did, they may seem so simple to us, mm-hmm. but considering the circumstances he was under through that trial, mm-hmm. a normal person would be so self-absorbed with that trial, mm-hmm. and self-consumed that we mm-hmm. wouldn't even think about what was going on with anything else other than that, mm-hmm. and to be able to take that time.
Yeah. And at night he would be with his children, and he would go over their schoolwork with them, and maybe watch a movie, and spend time with them, and talk to them, and have popcorn, and do all these things. And then when they went to bed, then he would talk to his attorneys mm-hmm. on the phone, and sometimes, of course, late into the night, and sometimes 3 a.m. But, he shielded the children from all that, and he was a dedicated father without any lapse, even at this most difficult time when you would think that, he may have, withdrawn even from his own children just because of the horrendous experience that he was going through. But he didn't. He still did what he needed to do and still wanted to be the best father he could be. And just, like I say, they're just myriad examples of that kind of thing, mm-hmm. of his still behaving in a way that I find just really remarkable because of what he was going through.
He's just a remarkable man, and the more I find out about him, and in the year that I've been doing this, and it's only been a year, it'll actually be a year in August, that I, and I'm going to use the word discover, mm-hmm. Because I'm still discovering who this man was and who this man is. I am astonished every single day by mm-hmm. the things that I find out and the things that I've seen him do. The people that this man has touched, mm-hmm. Through his music or through stories that are now coming out, mm-hmm. Articles, old newspaper articles. Mm-hmm. I have not been able to find one article that has come out by somebody he knows mm-hmm. that is disparaging or negative. Mm-hmm. Not one. The mm-hmm. stuff that's coming out that is disparaging and negative are coming mm-hmm. out by people who never knew him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, how interesting is that?
Yeah, it's very interesting. That's so a lot of people were afraid to do that, At first, you didn't hear much at all. Mm-mm. It was really very quiet. And then a first person came out, and a second, and a third, because, he had been so beaten down by the media that it was, I think it felt difficult for some people to come forward and say, no, he really wasn't like that. He was really a fine man. and I've gone through, some of that too in terms of my writing a book and whatever. I live in a community that's very Caucasian, and it's on the affluent side, and there are very few minorities here, and so we have people who, have attitudes that you and I might describe as outdated and inappropriate in today's age. Mm-hmm. But anyway, these are the people with whom I interact because I live here. And my neighbor 2 doors down, when I said to him something about, would you like a copy of my book? And I just spent a Thanksgiving with him recently, with him and his wife and my husband. And he said to me, I wouldn't have that in my house.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and my own mother would not read it. She would not read any of it. I sent her a gift for her birthday of a book, and she gave it away. Oh. And she said that she would not read it. And she's a reader. She reads all the time. But she gave the book away and wouldn't read any of it. So that's my mother. So, you get a sense of how people are responding to an image. Mm-hmm. And of course, some of this was hurtful, of course. But I felt, well, that's kind of the price you pay, and you still hang in there and you do what you believe is right. And of course, that's what I've always done. And that's why the book, that's why I really wrote the book, is I felt somebody should really be out there and be saying these things.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I'm hoping that the book will be obsolete soon, that people will look at my book and say, what? Defending a king, his life and legacy? Who needs to do that? Mm-hmm. He doesn't need anybody to defend him. He was a wonderful man.
I agree.
And
absolutely.
a wonderful artist.
That
and a wonderful
will be a wonderful day.
And when that day comes and they say, boy, this book is obsolete, Yeah. People will not know the kind of the social path colored by the media that I and others have walked since Michael's death, because there's already been a transformation, and I think that's going to continue big time.
I think so too.
I welcome the day. I welcome the day when they say, that book's a dinosaur.
Yeah.
But it wasn't when I came out with it. It's still relevant.
Mm-hmm.
It's still getting out information that is not generally out there.
Right.
And it's truthful. It's truthful, it's honest, it's forthright, and it's caring. And that's really what I wanted it to be. And again, I'm seeing that change, that evolution coming, and I think it's a wonderful thing. And some of it is done by the commercial aspects, because Michael is so successful again commercially, and nothing succeeds like success.
Right.
People look to that and say, wow, what a brilliant musician and entertainer and singer and dancer. And then they look at what the other things he did and they say, oh, wow. So more people are discovering him and more people are reevaluating him.
What I always find
wonderful.
I do too. And what I find amazing too is they always talk about how, his celebrity status declined in the mid to late 90s, really up until his passing, which is totally opposite. They say, well, he wasn't recording, nothing came out, he wasn't making public appearances. And I look at him and I go, okay, so the man did not publish a new album every year. It took him years to publish an album. It took him years to come up with a song. Yeah.
He was a perfectionist.
He was a perfectionist. So in 2005, he came out with, when did Invincible come out? Like 99, somewhere in there.
Right around the turn of the
right around that 99, 2000, somewhere in there. Okay. So now you look at 2000 to 2005. Okay, we'll give that 5-year time frame. In that time frame, he was writing, he was recording, he was working. Now the trial hit, so it was him preparing. He put everything on hold to prepare for this trial.
Yeah,
because this was his life that we're talking about. I don't blame the guy for stepping back. But yet, even while he was preparing for the trial, he was still writing and he was still working and he was still doing what he needed to do.
Right. In fact, while they were raiding his home at the end of 2003, when they were raiding Neverland, at the end of 2003, he was in Las Vegas recording and taping One More Chance.
Right, which is a beautiful song. I love the song. I love the song.
It's beautiful, and the video is wonderful too. It's very creative.
And the same. Creative. In that same time frame, he was with Barry Gibb doing It's All in a Name.
Yeah,
right. So he was still working.
Oh, yeah.
now the 2000 trial hits, and that went on for months and months and months.
Yeah, 5 months.
Nearly destroyed this man. Give the man a break.
Mm-hmm.
Let him go and let him recover.
Yeah, but he still did, even when he was in Ireland, he was stayed in places that had recording studios.
Absolutely.
And he was recording there, and he was talking to people about collaborating with him, and he was doing all kinds of things creatively. And
he never stopped. Never stopped. And, it was released in 2001. So, Invincible was. I love that album, by the way.
Yeah.
I listen to it all the time. So, the man never gave up. The man always had hope. The man always had a dream. Always believed in dreams coming true. And always wanted the best for his fans. Wanted the absolute best for his children. And to do what he did was beyond human, as far as I'm concerned. Because I don't think anybody in their right mind would be able to handle and endure what he did in his lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to our bottom of the hour break. Karen, can you stay? Yeah, exactly. Okay, can you stay with us a little bit longer when we come back after break?
Sure.
Absolutely. She likes me. Okay, don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Hazy Radio Network, hazyradio.com.
Go.
And welcome back to the Broad Review, everybody, with our very, very, very special guest, Dr. Karen Moriarty, talking about her book, Defending a King, Life and Legacy of Michael Jackson. Karen, when you were putting this book together, I can only imagine the ebb and flow of emotions that went through you writing the book, because I know when I read the book, I get goosebumps, you cry, you laugh, you're sympathetic, you're empathetic, you get mad, you get every single emotion flows through this book. How could you put all that together?
How could I put it together, you're saying, or deal with it, or what do you? Oh, well, putting it together wasn't all that difficult, but writing it was, because it really was an emotional experience. I was sitting at the keyboard, and I would be, really angry, and I would be weeping. I'd have to wipe tears from my eyes, a number of times. And I would be also kind of laughing, but I was also always trying to think of what he would like to be said and how he might like it. And I would also be thinking of the fans that eventually would be reading it and, how would they respond. So you have that, but as you know, it's really lonely to be a writer because you really have no reinforcement along the way, and you're working for months and months and have little to no reinforcement. Like a lot of jobs, you're going to have some reinforcement, sometimes on a daily or even more than daily basis. So you're an author, and I write through the night, and those quiet, dark hours through the night, and it is a lonely business. So I'd be sitting there, weeping and, and laughing and getting very emotional and having an ebb and flow of emotions the whole time. In fact, much of the time, because I did find it an emotional experience. I wrote it because I had an emotional impetus to write it. So that was the origin of it. And so that's really what was playing out. And putting together what I was going to say and how I was going to say it, of course, it's always the decision-making you go through. But I can honestly say I did not have 1 minute of writer's block. Everything was just flowing. It's like flowing through me. The feelings, the energy, the various things. And fortunately, I do have good recall. And so a lot of these things that I had learned about Michael were coming through and at the appropriate times, So it was a wonderful thing. Also, I had people send me things who knew I was writing the book and were excited about it, and they would send me material, and it was uncanny how they would, unsolicited, send me material that I was just at that point getting ready to write or was seeking information about. It was an amazing thing. It was almost surreal. So, it really was. I felt inspired to do it, So, so I felt really good about the outcome and the fact now that people can enjoy it. And I can get that feedback because you're so bereft of it all the months that you're writing, by yourself and researching by yourself.
Right. And it almost becomes, and knowing when I write, when I get into my writing modes, when I have time, people ask if you're obsessive. It really isn't. The word obsessive would be incorrect. It's more you become passionate with what you're writing about. And I think that draws more emotion than obsession does.
Well, except I have to confess to being obsessive. So I think I was both passionate and obsessive, yeah, because I really am. While I was writing the book, I couldn't even really attend to a movie. I'd go to a movie, with my husband or friend, and I'd be sitting there with a pad and paper, and I'd be, a little flashlight in the purse, and, get a good idea, whatever, write it down. Even a key point of the denouement of the movie or something, I'd be writing something on my notepad. So I really was obsessive while I wrote it, and it kind of took me over. I dream about it too, and it's just something that happens or happened. But I'm glad because I think it's the product. I think
it shows.
Feel good about it, it kind of shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was written from the heart. And,
Oh, and that's obvious all the way through it. But what I like about the book too is that it doesn't. How do I put it without sounding like an idiot? It doesn't come off biased, if that makes sense, because you do cover all aspects of it. You do cover the not so good pieces of information that you acquired, but the way you formulate it, it isn't an in your face. What you do is, if there's a tough subject, like you do talk about Conrad Murray, which is a tough subject, and it's an angry subject, and it's a passionate subject, you aren't so in your face. You just put it out there. Real.
Right, yeah. I didn't put a lot of judgment into that because people who read it can see that the judgment is there just by the facts. So I didn't need to rail against him because just what he did, and as you read that, what a horrendous thing that he did, what a terrible breach of ethics and morality and so on. So yeah, I thank you for saying that because I don't really attack anybody, I don't think, in the book, because I wasn't interested in that, but I did try to portray some of the negative stuff, but hopefully in a more sympathetic or a more compassionate way or in a contextual way.
Exactly, and that's exactly what comes. Yeah, that's the way exactly it comes up.
Look at anything in the context, almost anything in the real context. If you understand the context, almost everything becomes understandable.
Well, you begin to understand the man. You understand, even the things that he went through. You understand the reactions that he had. Now, a lot of people say Michael never got angry. Well, of course he did. But he never, I shouldn't say never, he rarely expressed anger or disappointment in public. I think he did more so in his later years because he had to. It was kind of like he finally put his foot down and said, enough. Now I'm going to tell my side of the story. And I think where that turning point came was the Martin Bashir.
Yes.
He finally said, I'm done. I'm going to tell it my way now.
Yeah. I think he was angry, and that was healthy. But he learned all his life not to be angry. You learn early on you're not angry, even if you're sharing a bathroom with 10 people.
Right.
And you have to get to school, whatever. Right. And you've got all these really strong personalities you're dealing with, not to mention a very strong and strict and controlling father. So he learns that he didn't have the luxury of being able to be angry.
Right.
But then I think you're right. I think, I think that trial was pivotal. And I think then afterwards he was, the reports are like by Tom Mesereau and a couple others who knew, that he was angry, and that was the normal way to be.
He would have his outbursts, like you talk about the one spot in the book where has a conversation and he's angry and he threw the phone across the room. And the thing is that he never had his own cell phone. It was always somebody else's he was throwing across the room.
Right.
I'm sorry, you have to get a new one now. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
But the guy had every right to be angry. He had every right to have that kind of a reaction to the things that were being done to him, and by people that he trusted.
Yeah, and it's healthy. there's a theory that I subscribe to, that depression is anger turned inward, anger turned on yourself.
Yes.
And, so a lot of people, you don't see a really angry person. I'm not proposing that people go around expressing their anger all the time.
Right.
So, don't get me wrong about that. But the point is, you won't see a really angry person being depressed.
True.
They aren't depressed. They take it on other people. And I'm not proposing that, but I'm just trying to make a point.
Yeah.
Which is, it's healthy to be angry when you have the, when the circumstances are such that anybody of right mind would be angry. If you're not, you're swallowing it down and you're smiling and still trying to play nice.
Right.
It's going to take its toll in some other way, and usually in depression and, other kinds of dysfunctional behavior.
Yeah.
So I think it was a healthy thing. I even mentioned that in my book. People probably, his fans would probably feel good knowing he was angry.
Right. Because
rather than beaten down and depressed and so on, because he did go on to continue to write music, continue to be a dad, continue to be creative.
Yep. Okay, we actually have a question from the chat room. Lovey wants to know, Michael Jackson, the author mentions about a name Flower in her book. Can she elaborate or tell us what Michael wants us to know about special women? Because we all know Michael wanted to be happily ever after.
Well, my understanding of Michael is that he already had determined that he is not going to be, married. He's not going to be having a woman that he would be seeing in the public eye, just because of all these things we've been talking about, that it wouldn't be fair to her. So I think what he did do, especially last years of his life, was he kept, his whole life really, but he tried to keep his private relationships private.
Right.
And he did, though, have relationships with two women, basically concurrently, when he was in Vegas from end of 2006 to 2008. And he was seeing these women on occasion, sporadically, usually away from his home, usually at another place like a hotel or a motel or something like that. And he would spend time with them and have some conversations with them in between by phone and this sort of thing. So he had two lady friends, and one was named Flower and one was named Friend, and that's what he called them to the people around him, including his security personnel, because he wanted to protect their privacy. So, but he never wanted to be seen with them in public or have the media be filming or photographing or anything. So he made sure that didn't happen. And that was the job of his security personnel, to keep that private. And he also didn't want to visit that on his children. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with that. A man who's single can certainly be dating a woman and have her to his home and so on. But I think he was very sensitive to his kids that, they had grown up without a mom. They'd had a nanny and other women around. And then he kind of played both roles, mom and dad, all those years. And I think he just felt that it wasn't the right time with them at the ages they were to have daddy dating.
Right.
So it was sort of like, why? He didn't have to have that really in their faces. So he did it, privately, and I don't think his kids had any real awareness except that, maybe that they were like casual friends, like a lot of the other entertainers and musicians who would come around.
Right.
So it was all very casual, I'm sure, in terms of their perspective. But, but he did like women, he did have relationships, and he did have, relationships with those two women who have not come forward.
Which says a lot for them.
Yeah. And I think I'm quite sure I know who one of them was, and I'm not going to say because I'm not really sure, and I haven't spoken to her, and I don't think it's right. But I do think I know who one was, and the other one I have no clue. But maybe someday they will. Maybe someday they will. Whoever they are, I think they want to protect his privacy, and I really admire them for that because they could get more than 15 minutes of fame by doing that. By coming forward,
I think so. I just think it's wonderful, and I think that Michael is still teaching us, and we've talked about that before. I think he will continue to teach us for years and years and years to come. I think when, his music will never go away. His voice will never go away. His words will never go away because they're in print. And I think, we kind of talked about at the beginning, the controversy with the new album. I am fine with the album being out. I have no issue with it whatsoever. I think it is Michael's music. People may not think it is, but I think it's as close to Michael as we're going to get. And I think what it will continue to do is it will continue to present Michael to a new audience.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, right. And,
you know, so right, you know, so it's okay. It's okay that it's there, and it's beautiful music.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel really good about it too, and because if somebody had told me a year ago that Michael Jackson's going to become number one again in the world because of his music,
right.
I would have said, you know, it's really a wonderful thought, but it's not going to happen.
Right.
Because he is gone, and because, you know, how can it happen, you know? So I was excited that the Cirque du Soleil shows are so good and so representative and so well received.
Right.
And I thought that's going to really certainly help to cement his legacy, for sure.
Right, exactly.
But now this album comes out, which is number one in the world. Mm-hmm. Now, who would have thought that? You know, we get inured to these things. We don't, you know, when they come about, you know, we lose perspective of what we would have maybe wished for him 6 months or 12 months ago. And we start thinking then, oh gosh, this isn't quite the way I'd like it to be. It's not quite the flavor I like or I prefer. This isn't quite the way, you know, I would have done it. But the point is, it is his voice. It is his music. Mm-hmm. People he knew and worked with helped him to now that he's gone, to put it out and put it in front of the public. And, you know, think of all the hundreds, and I mean literally hundreds of people Michael helped.
That's
so
right.
Why shouldn't they help him now when he's not here to do it for himself?
Exactly.
Why shouldn't they help it and put the final, you know, bells and whistles on it?
Absolutely.
And get it out there to people so they can appreciate him, and yet new generations can appreciate him. And
right.
This cements, in my opinion, this cements his legacy. Not that it wasn't going to be there before.
Right.
But if anybody were to quarrel and say, oh, you know, yeah, it's going to decline over the years. Hello, it's not.
It's not.
It's 2014, he's number
right.
one, and God knows where he's going to be in another 2 or 3 or 5 years. Right. I believe he's going to be bigger than he is now.
I do too.
So, yeah, it's just going to continue, and it's astounding. And here's a man who at one point in his life was afraid he'd be forgotten. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think he'd be just delighted that people are enjoying it and all the happiness he's bringing. And
I think he would be all for it. And you have to think, too, that the producers and the artists that were involved in this, many of them knew and had worked with Michael before. Mm-hmm. They are absolutely not going to do something that Michael would not want. Mm-hmm. They are not going to risk disrespecting Michael. No. And on that as well, the hologram is this huge debate now. Mm-hmm. We all know it wasn't Michael. Mm-hmm. It's a hologram. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between watching a hologram on the Billboard Awards than going to Vegas and watching an impersonator? Mm-hmm. What's the difference of going to and watching his own impersonators do Michael Jackson material? There is no difference. It's done with the absolute utmost respect. And I say, go for it.
You know, and he was always honored. He was always honored by people. He always supported and praised the people who were impersonating him. He wasn't guarding jealously the fact only I can do this move or only I can do whatever. He was very encouraging, and it tickled him to see people emulating him and doing his moves, especially kids, you know. Yeah. And if you go on the internet, of course, which we do every single day, and you look at some of these videos and things that come around, they're doing his music and having contests, and they're ice skating to it and roller skating to it and doing acrobatics to his work and having, you know, as I say, contests. And from, you know, South Korea and Thailand and, you know, Japan and Brazil and European countries and literally all over the world.
You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, you were talking about the hologram, but something with the hologram. I mean, you saw the reactions in the audience. I mean, people, there are a lot of people who may never have seen Michael Jackson perform.
That's right. That's
right. And you know, the fact that you're seeing, you know, the man, well, in a sense, you're actually seeing the man actually at his craft. For a lot of people, I mean, that they never had a chance to see him. They never had a chance to see him live. But at the same time, you know, I know you're saying there's a lot of people who are having a problem with the hologram. Some of these people who are having problems with the hologram with the holographic image of Michael Jackson, which I watched it. I didn't see it when it happened, but I watched it, and it was a very good image and likeness of him. Some of these people are probably the same people where if they did the same type thing and didn't tell anybody, where Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr sat up there with a holographic image of George Harrison and John Lennon, they'd be praising it.
Right.
So I mean, you know, it's, you know, like Zita says, it's, you know, I mean, there are many impersonators out there impersonating Michael Jackson, showing tribute to him. This is just another way of showing tribute to his art, just like it was when they did it with Tupac Shakur, just like they had a huge concert. I can remember a couple of years ago, they had a huge concert where they brought Elvis Presley's original band together, and they had and they had him up on a big screen. Elvis was never there. Elvis never showed up. There was no Elvis impersonator. Yet hundreds of millions of people went to go see that show, and they praised it, saying, "Oh my God, this is a great show." What's the difference?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I think it's a very good point, because that image had Michael's, not only his appearance and his kind of dress for sure, but his moves, as you say.
Absolutely.
And so it's people, I think, could say, like, "Oh my goodness, but did he really?" People didn't really know him. Did he really dance like that? I was like, "Oh my God, this is really cool."
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
I was when I watched the Billboard Music Awards, I was really kind of disappointed in that I wasn't really totally impressed with any of the performances except for Michael's.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking afterwards, I kept playing in my head "Slave to the Rhythm." I was singing it over and over again. The next morning, I'm singing it to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought back to the awards, and I thought, not to denigrate any of those people or their talent, but if you paid me, I could not hum a single one of those songs I heard except for Michael's.
Yeah.
Michael stayed with me, and I'm humming it because it has melody.
Right.
It's music in every sense of the word. It's, it's got all those elements that stay with you, and that's what he wanted. He wanted people for his music to stay with people and for them to be able to hum it.
Yeah, it doesn't,
And I thought, boy, he sure achieved that, because I couldn't get it out of my head. And as
right,
I say,
and that's what he wanted.
Songs, the other songs, I couldn't. If you had turned it off and said, "Now, hum me a few bars," I would have said, "You got me," can't do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And some of these people who are having problems with the holographic image are, they're probably not fans of his, saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe that." But I can guarantee you, if they're Elvis Presley fans, don't you think they'd love it if a holographic image of Elvis Presley all of a sudden came on stage and performed an entire show?
Yeah.
It's
exciting because, it's a willing suspension of belief.
Right.
A lot of our entertainment, movies and TV shows and plays and all that, they make us go into a willing suspension of belief.
Yes.
Because we accept what it is we're seeing, and we expect it is true, even if it's fiction or whatever, or illusion or whatever. And I see this in that same category. It's a willing suspension of belief, because this reminds us so much of the real Michael and how he would move.
It's taking people. It's taking people back to a time where you could see, like I said with Zeta in the beginning of the show. It's taking people back to a time to see what I do think is the greatest performer of not just possibly not just our time, but of all time. Mm-hmm. And what it does is it gives people who have never had the chance to see him either on tape or live, to get that vibe he had. It gives those people a chance to see him.
Right.
Right.
They know it's not him, and it's not morbid. They realize it's not Michael Jackson, but it gives them that opportunity to actually see him. And it is, I think it was a great tribute, and I think whoever, I think whoever they do it to next, I mean, like I said, I'm waiting for Elvis Presley, or I'm waiting for them to try to do something with the Beatles, to bring all four of them back on stage again. Whoever they do it to, it's, whoever they put something like that together for next, it's a tribute. And I think, and I think it would be a very fitting tribute to see, the Fab Four back together on stage.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point. And I think also, not only is it a tribute, but this was the only, or perhaps not maybe the only, but the best way to present his new music in a forum where it should be.
Right.
At the Billboard Music Awards. So having an impersonator would not have done it. People, I think, would have been, disappointed. And no impersonator is Michael. So doing impersonator, just showing him on a screen from some old clips or whatever, as good as they may be, that wouldn't have done it. So, they did it in a new way, in a cutting-edge technology way.
Right.
And that's why I think Michael would approve, because he always wanted to do the next thing, something he hadn't done
always
before.
wanted to do. He even looked
and he loved illusions.
Yeah, he even looked into holograms at one point. How does it work? How do you make it work? So, okay, we're actually running out of time, and we're actually running over. Karen, where can everybody find your book? I know many places.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have a website with different options right on the home page that you can click on to get it. But my website is www.defendingaking.com. And but it's available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iPad, so it can be ordered online. If you go into a bookstore, you can order it, but they have to order it for
Right.
you. So it's not going to be sitting on a bookstore shelves, but you could order it at a Barnes & Noble, for example. But I suggest that people do order it because almost everybody's doing things online now, and it can be gotten online. And and there are various options that you'll see on my website from, just a few dollars for the book.
It is,
I think $19 from Amazon in paperback.
yeah. It is a phenomenal book. When I started reading it this last time, I could not put it down. I was obsessed to read the whole thing again. It draws you in. It helps you understand the man. And that's the person that I want people to see. And I can guarantee you, if somebody who doesn't know Michael Jackson, if somebody believes the hype that they've heard about Michael Jackson and all the weird things that were put out there, if they read that book, their entire opinion would change.
Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed.
I think that's true. And thank you to the fans, and anybody listening in, of course. Thanks to the fans, it is the highest rated book on Amazon for 1 year now of the Michael Jackson books, of 470 books. It's the highest rated. And it's also, as of 3 weeks ago, it's the Michael Jackson book with the most reviews.
Yes.
So people are going on and giving good
I
reviews.
think it's great. And you are going to be in California for the 5th anniversary in June?
I am, yes. And I'm going to be wearing a name tag, so I hope to see a lot of people that I just know from the internet, Facebook.
Yep, absolutely. And then on June 24th, for the Jackson listeners, the fans are listening now, I will be doing another special show on Michael Jackson. It is going to be a full tribute show. So people are going to be calling in from LA and from around the world, actually, giving their thoughts on Michael and what he's done for them. I will be playing Michael Jackson music that entire show, which is technically against the law, but I'm going to break the law. So if you don't hear from me after that, you'll know why. But Karen, thank you very, very, very much for coming on the Broad of View once again.
And absolutely,
I will have you back because there's always more to talk about with Michael.
Yeah, there always is, and thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's an exciting time for Michael Jackson fans, and we should celebrate, I think.
And that's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. So they can find you on Facebook, Karen Moriarty, and defendingtheking.com. You can find my Michael Jackson page under simply Michael, or just look for me on Facebook, and you can follow me, and I can get you onto the page. Karen, you're also on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. The network's on Twitter. Scott's on Twitter. Wanda's on Twitter. We're all on Twitter. We're all Twitters.
We're all Twitters.
We're all Twitters. So again, Karen, thank you very, very much. And then don't go away. I know we did run over Chris. I apologize for that, but you're a Michael Jackson fan too, so it's all good. So Scott, thank you for producing the show one more time. I appreciate it.
Wanda.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Peter.
And thank you, Wanda. And you guys have a wonderful night. And tomorrow night, Scott, you're having who on your show?
We have a musical guest. We have blues artist Morale Coriel on the show. We played a lot of music of his here on the network, and it's going to be fun. We're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about his father, who's a legendary blues artist. Don't know where the conversation's going to go. It's going to be fun.
Perfect. Okay, I appreciate you guys have a good night, and we will see you on next week on The Broad of View. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.